Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly pumped to have you here today because, well, we are finally at the finish line. We've spent a ton of time breaking down the massive complexities of the EPA's construction inspector training. We've talked erosion controls, we've unpacked stormwater pollution prevention, and now the learning phase is over. Time for a quick recap and to look at the ultimate transition. You've done the studying, you've absorbed the material, but how do you actually cross that line, pass the exams, and step onto a real-world construction site? That's exactly what we're mapping out right now.
So let's just dive right into it. It's a big question, right? You finish the modules, what actually happens next? Because it's one thing to understand the theory of the construction general permit in a digital classroom, but it is a whole different ballgame when you step out into the mud, grab a clipboard, and suddenly you're the one legally responsible for a site's environmental compliance. Today, we are bridging that gap. We're going to look at exactly how the EPA tests your readiness, and more importantly, the immense real-world accountability and fines waiting for you on the other side.
Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the virtual site inspection. Number 2, passing the final exam. And number 3, fines and penalties.
Let's start with part 1, the virtual site inspection, simulating the field.
Before you even attempt that final exam, the EPA wants to make sure you know what a real site actually looks like. And Module 5 does this in a really cool way. A guided, interactive, 360-degree virtual environment. It was built by this awesome interdisciplinary team to let you literally navigate through the dirt and equipment right from your screen, basically simulating a full-on, in-person field inspection.
So what are you actually doing inside this simulation? Well, you aren't just clicking around one generic site. The training actually takes you through 2 entirely distinct construction sites. You're tasked with identifying different types of erosion, spotting both the good and the terribly bad stormwater controls, and figuring out exactly what needs to go into your inspection documentation. It's fantastic because it safely prepares you for exactly the kind of chaos you'll eventually encounter on the job.
Moving on to part 2, passing the final exam, earning your certificate.
Okay, so you've navigated the virtual dirt, and now it's time to actually prove what you know. And honestly, the final exam parameters are pretty strict. You're going to face between 30 and 40 randomized questions, and they're pulled from a much larger bank. So no, you can't just memorize one version of the test with your buddies. You've got to hit a score of 80% or higher to pass. The exam is going to rigorously test you on erosion control principles, pollution prevention practices, and the incredibly strict reporting requirements. But hey, the reward is absolutely worth it. When you hit that 80% threshold, boom, you get the green check mark. You've officially passed. Successful completion gets you a certificate, provided completely free by the EPA. And look, it's not just a nice piece of paper to pin to your fridge. This certificate must actually be included in the site records to officially prove to regulatory authorities that you are fully trained and compliant.
And that certificate leads us to this crucial definition right here, the qualified person. This is literally the ultimate goal of the entire training process. By passing that exam and holding that certificate, you legally become a qualified person. Why does that matter? Because under the permit rules, only individuals holding this official status are legally allowed to conduct inspections at permitted sites. Without it, you just can't do the job, period.
All right, part 3, fines and penalties, the real-world stakes. Okay, I'm going to shift gears here because we really need to drop the hammer for a second. The free, accessible, low-stress online training is over. In the real world, it all boils down to this fundamental rule. Unpermitted discharges are a violation of the Clean Water Act. If an operator fails to get permit coverage, or if a qualified person drops the ball, meaning inspections are missed, controls fail, and dirty stormwater leaves the site, that is an immediate violation of federal law. And the financial consequences? They are staggering. $37,500. Let that number sink in. That isn't a flat fee for the whole project. That is the potential civil penalty per day for each individual violation of a permit condition. If a site goes weeks without proper inspections and sediment is just pouring into a local creek, those daily fines stack up incredibly fast.
But guys, civil penalties are kind of just the beginning. Let's look at the criminal side of things. The Clean Water Act draws a very firm, very crucial legal distinction between 2 types of criminal actions: negligent violations and knowing violations. And how the EPA classifies your failure will completely change the trajectory of your life.
Let's start with a negligent violation.
Basically, this happens when you didn't mean to cause harm, but you failed to exercise the standard of care that a reasonable, qualified person should have. For a first-time negligent violation, the criminal penalty can be up to $25,000 per day of violation. And even more seriously, it carries the threat of up to 1 entire year in prison, just for negligence.
Now let's bump it up a tier. A knowing violation. This is when the EPA determines you intentionally bypassed the rules or you knew you were violating permit conditions and just let it happen anyway. The maximum daily fine for a first-time knowing violation doubles to $50,000 per day. And that potential prison time, it triples, rocketing up to a maximum of 3 years.
And we absolutely have to highlight this incredibly specific penalty, $10,000. This fine, along with up to 2 years in prison, is carved out specifically for false statements. If you knowingly render a monitoring device inaccurate, or if you sign off on a falsified inspection report saying a site was completely clean when you know it wasn't, you are committing a federal crime. The EPA has absolute zero tolerance for falsified documents.
To completely cement this reality, let's just read this sobering quote directly from the standard permit conditions. Any permit noncompliance constitutes a violation of the Clean Water Act and is grounds for enforcement action. There is no gray area here, folks. Once you step onto a site as the designated qualified person, you carry an immense personal, financial, and legal duty to uphold the exact letter of that permit. Which brings us right to our final thought. You've seen the 360-degree virtual training. You know you have to score an 80% on that final exam to get your certificate. And you have just seen the $1 million prison sentence reality of what happens if you don't do your job in the real world. So the big question is, are you truly ready for the responsibility of being a qualified person? If you are gearing up to take the course and the exam right now, remember that structured prep is absolutely everything. If it helps, we can use our tools to create a set of study flashcards or even a practice quiz based directly on those permit rules to help you get totally ready for the exam. We can also generate a specific audio overview breaking down exactly what to look for during a site inspection. Just let us know what you need to crush it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay focused out there, and I will see you next time.